Hi everyone, I'm Mono, and in this video I'll be going over what I want to see change in Hella Loose in the coming months. Update 9 is going to be released sometime this year, probably within the first quarter if I were to guess, and we already have some information on what it's going to include, like proper barbed wire and updated weapon models. However, I won't be going over that. I want to talk about what I want to see in this update, a wish list, if you will, of the changes and features that I want to get as soon as possible. Some of these will line up with the update and some won't, but hopefully all of these get rolled out eventually. As always, before I get started, a big shout out to everyone that supports the channel either by donating during live streams or by just watching and subscribing, and of course, a big thank you to all my patrons. Thank you for supporting me and allowing me to keep doing this. Alright, let's get started. First of all, the grass loading issue. I imagine everyone knows exactly what I'm talking about. Whenever you spawn, grass takes a few seconds to load and display correctly. Sometimes it seems to take longer than others, sometimes it loads all at once, and sometimes it just takes forever as it loads different types of grass one after the other. They issued a hotfix after the problem became even worse with the changes to foliage done in Update 8, but the problem is very much still there. And there's a couple of reasons why I'm placing this as the very first issue that I want to see get fixed in the next big update. First of all, it's just extremely annoying. In some maps like Foy, it's less of an issue, but in maps with large wheat fields and farmland or a lot of vegetation, it just completely kills the atmosphere for me. It's like every time I spawn, I'm getting an on-screen reminder that the game is still in early access. And the other part of this is how much it affects gameplay. I can't tell you guys the number of times I've seen enemies hidden across a wheat field that hasn't finished loading, or spotted a garrison that was cleverly hidden, or shot and killed enemies while they were completely unable to see me because I had just spawned while they had been alive for some time. I've actually died on purpose while pushing an objective just to be able to spawn at an outpost and get a good look at the enemy position before a wheat field finishes loading. And lastly, maybe the main reason I want this fixed is because it's just long overdue. This problem was supposed to get fixed in Update 8 and it didn't. And at this point, I just want issues like these to start going away for good and not make a comeback. I want to look back and think about the stuff that we used to deal with all the time, like the bad vaulting animations that would stop you from vaulting for a few seconds if someone vaulted near you. That's gone. That's in the past, and new players are never even going to know about it. That's what I want to see happen with the foliage. Okay, next point, tank fixes, and this is something that I think is actually supposed to be coming with Update 9. If you don't play tanks regularly, you probably won't notice this, but there are several problems with the way that tanks work in the game right now. First of all, there's the balance issues, both in terms of the fuel cost for each tank and the actual tanks themselves. For example, the Panther cannot penetrate the jumbo tanks from the front except for a very narrow area at the top of the turret where it will one-shot them. This seems completely arbitrary and not at all intentional and makes no sense whatsoever. Why would a shot to the top of the turret destroy the entire tank in a single shot? Why can't the Panther penetrate the sides or rear of the turret at all? Looking at the American firepower, the 76 can one-shot the Panther by hitting its front angled armor, which is where the armor is thickest and most effective, but it will take 2 shots to penetrate the turret. Here's a video I found of some footage done on the Panther. Yes, right on that frontal armor, absolutely no damage, with a way bigger gun than what's on the 76. Most people probably don't know this, but the Panther actually had better armor than the Tiger, so it makes no sense for tanks to be able to penetrate the Panther from the front, but not the Tiger. I'm not saying this should all be historically accurate, but if we have the Garand versus Car difference, there should be an asymmetry to the tanks as well. Regular Sherman tanks should be very inexpensive, but also very vulnerable to both the Panther and the Tiger. As it stands right now, with the Panther, you have to hit the Sherman, the regular one, in the right spot to be able to one-shot him, which makes, again, it doesn't make any sense. The German tanks should be more expensive, but also deadlier, and nearly impenetrable from the front. But more importantly, There should be some consistency in terms of which tank can damage which tank and from what angle or where. Right now it's just all over the place, with some spots very specifically taking a lot of damage and others taking no damage whatsoever. But there are other issues as well. There's a bug where sometimes Shermans will be virtually invulnerable and not get penetrated from the front at all. That also obviously has to go. Driving through obstacles needs to be way better than it is. A telegram mentioned that tanks might be able to destroy barbed wire, and I absolutely think they should. But first, we need to be able to drive down the train tracks in Carentan without bouncing all over the place or getting stopped by a wooden fence. Alright, enough about tanks. Let's move on to number 3, the anti-alias. I recently posted a video going over some tweaks you can make to one of the game files to make the game look significantly better, and they all have to do with the way the anti-alias works in the game. Right now, none of the in-game settings makes the game look the way it does with these tweaks, and you're stuck with a variety of options, but all of them seem like a compromise in visual quality in some way or another. There's the clarity setting, which makes things look shimmery. There's standard, which makes things a bit blurry, and then there's FXAA, which is like extra shimmer. I've been told that this is a complete non-issue when playing at 1440p or above, which might be the case, but I play at 1080p and I just could not find a way to make the game look really good until I applied that tweak. And it's a real shame because I think the texture work in the game is excellent. Buildings look realistic and worn by the war. Trees and snow look really good, and the special effects that were overhauled in Update 8 look absolutely incredible. It's a shame to have all these beautiful assets get affected by what seems to be a really simple issue. Now, I say simple, but I'm not a game developer, and I have nothing but respect for what the guys at Black Matter do. And there's probably a ton of stuff regarding performance and hardware compatibility that I know nothing about. But I do want to see the game get a standard graphical option in the settings that makes AA look nice, or at least nicer than it does. After all, the comments I got in that video are mostly people that are really thankful that the game now looks the way it should, you know? Alright, number 4, a tutorial. I've done a ton of guides and tutorials on YouTube, so I'm probably shooting myself in the foot by saying this, but the game needs a proper tutorial. It needs some sort of scripted level where you get to try things out while the game teaches you the different mechanics like nodes, garrisons, outposts, capping sectors, and so on. Whether this is a full-on tutorial level, a wall of text, or just some links to some helpful videos, I don't know, but just given the amount of new players that I see every time there's a Steam sale, there's obviously a need for it. I know Black Matter is probably completely aware of this, as well as they are aware of everything else I'm talking about, but I think this would help new players actually like the game within their first few hours. I first tried Hell Let Loose almost a year before I started making videos for it, and I didn't really like it. I didn't understand the game mechanics, the flow of the game, or what I was supposed to be doing. When I went back to it, things seemed to just click, and I had a lot more fun, probably because I found players that were willing to teach me stuff that I didn't know. And that's precisely the point. The reason why I didn't like the game when I first tried it wasn't because the game was bad, but rather because I didn't understand it. Needless to say, this would also help at having better matches with newer players, which would benefit the entire community. And finally, we get to number 5, and this isn't really something that can be included in Update 9, but maybe it's something that can get started with Update 9, and that is a wider use of the PTE. PTE stands for Public Test Environment, and it's something that the devs have used in the past to get some feedback on some new features for Update 8 before it was released. I'd love to see the PTE get used more often and more extensively to test things that aren't necessarily going to be a part of a future update. For example, I'm one of those people that thinks that maybe being able to build garrisons on enemy territory is a good idea. For those of you that might not know, you could do that until Update 7 rolled out. Now the only thing that you can build on enemy territory are outposts. So why change it again, right? Well, I don't want to dive into the subject right now, but I think maybe If you could build garrisons, but they required 150 supplies, or could only spawn a certain number of players, or only players from the closest squads, I don't know. Maybe I think that could make the game better, and that's precisely what I would love to see, a proper test environment to try things out. I'm talking about a full-on open server that's available to everyone during weekends or on Fridays or whatever, that runs the current build of the game with 1 or 2 changes. Nothing crazy like running a complete test for a new set of weapons or stuff like that. Just minor tweaks that might even fly under the radar for some people that are not familiar with the game entirely, you know? Tweaks that need proper matches to get tested. I'm talking stuff like resource economy. How much should each of the commander abilities cost? What if you couldn't start capping the next sector for a minute after capturing the first one? What if the speed at which sectors are capped was based on the amount of players, kind of like Battlefield? What if matches ended after a stalemate lasts for longer than 30 minutes or 20? This would be a lot of work, but a man can dream, right? And I think some of these tests could broaden the horizon and expand the way that we think about the game for both players and developers. I'd love to join a game and find that, hey, supply players don't have supplies and you're stuck relying entirely on trucks. Or join a game where resource nodes are entirely sector-based and cannot be built or destroyed. The possibilities are truly endless. So yeah, those are my main points, the main things that I want to see in a future update. As I mentioned, I think the main point here is that I want to see things get fixed, like the tank issues, like the grass, because I think fixing those issues will make the game considerably better than it already is. And that would be just awesome, you know? Alright guys, let me know what you think down in the comments. If you have anything that you would like to see in a future update, nothing crazy like a Japanese front or anything, you know, just leave it down in the comments. I would love to hear your opinions about it. And as always, thank you for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next one.